To tag or not to tag? That is the question that the Broncos have to answer for Dre'Mont Jones. And on today's show, we're going to be breaking down whether or not Denver should apply the franchise tag. Now, we're going to look at some dates, we're going to look at some numbers, but potentially by the time you're watching this, there has been a materialistic change and maybe an apply has been made, but I'll explain why that's not the end of the story. But let's get some background on Dre'Mont Jones first. The franchise tag window is February 21st, so right now, through March 7th. Now, the franchise tag value for defensive ends in 2023 is a high $19.72 million. So, the question is, should the Broncos tag Dre'Mont Jones if they cannot reach an agreement on a contract? Conveniently for the NFL, the window to franchise tag a player is before free agency kicks off, which is March 13th. You can see there on the timeline, you've got till February 21st to March 7th. Now, just because you put the franchise tag on a player doesn't mean that's the end of the road. No, most of the time it's a placeholder for teams to try and negotiate a longer-term contract, but not lose the guy in free agency, which starts the next week. So if Jones has been tagged by the time you're watching this, well, that could just be a temporary thing for Denver to try and negotiate a long-term deal with him. By the way, the end deadline is July 15th. So with that being said, I want you all to get in the comment section right now. Before I jump into the nuts and bolts of this, would you franchise tag Dre'Mont Jones? Yes or no? Let's start this conversation off with a three-step approach. Try not to be a full teacher here, but I want to start with just breaking down his stats and on-the-field contributions, what he does between the lines. Dre'Mont Jones' career stats, the former third-round pick out of Ohio State, has gotten better pretty much by the season, right? Started off with 3.5 sacks in year one, and since then he has gone all the way up to a consistent 5.5 to 6.5 sack player. And that is a very solid defensive end in a 3-4 scheme. Is it great? Is it fantastic? Not quite. It's solid. It's good, but it's not out of this world. Now, there are some great advanced stats that I think benefit Dre'Mont Jones more than just tackles and tackles for loss. In 56 games, he's generated 60 pressures. And if you ask the big nerds in the NFL, pressures sometimes can be just as good as sacks because it disrupts and ruins the play. Listen, Jones is a rising player in the NFL, and I would hate for him to be the next Shaq Barrett that gets away and next thing you know, he's leading the NFL in sacks with another team. But I don't think he is a player that is an absolute must-return, write a blank check type of guy. I'll explain why in just a second, but today's show is sponsored by Cultivate, the free browser extension that brings transparency to your Amazon shopping experience. Cultivate shows you the brand, seller, or product origin and identifies local alternatives that support local community efforts while saving you money. With over 50% of Amazon U.S. sellers based in China, Cultivate offers a way to avoid trickery from those sellers and keep money in the U.S. economy. Cultivate offers alternatives that are on average 30% less expensive than Amazon without any additional costs such as Amazon Prime. It can even identify local alternatives that you can pick up the same day. Cultivate users earn free donations as rewards for using the extension, and the more you use it, the more you earn in donations then by increasing your level. In fact, Cultivate donates 51% of the revenue they make on your purchase. So what are you waiting for? Go to wecultivate.us/chatsports and download Cultivate for free. Let Cultivate bring transparency, savings, and community to your Amazon shopping journey. Support the show and download it with our link. It's in the comments and the description of today's show, wecultivate.us/chatsports. Moving on to the second pillar of the discussion about whether or not to franchise tag Dre'Mont Jones. I think that the stats definitely bode well for wanting to bring him back. All right, next question. Is he worth the money, right? Is there room in the bank to bring back Dre'Mont Jones? When you look at the Broncos 2023 cap hits, there's not one big staggering $35 million, but you've got 5 guys who are eating up a good chunk of change right there. You're not blown out by Russell Wilson, still relatively low at $22 million, but Courtland Sutton at $18.2, that would be below Dre'Mont Jones. In my opinion, $19.72 million is just too high of a cap hit for one season for a player with 22 career sacks. I like Dre'Mont Jones. I would like to bring back Dre'Mont Jones. I'd like to find a way to do that. But I don't think for Denver it's the wisest move to make it their number one priority and stop at nothing and write any check that Dre'Mont Jones wants. I just don't value Dre'Mont Jones at $19.7 million for 22 career sacks. And personally, I don't think the Broncos do as well. Why? Because he doesn't fit in this niche, right? He's not one of the top 5 highest paid. He should not be one of the top 5 highest paid defensive ends in football because he's not in this category. He does not. I don't think this should be a hot take. He is not with the Leonard Williams or Von Millers of the world. In fact, if you look at the next top 5 highest paid defensive ends, this is 6 through 10 here. He's not really in this conversation as well. I think he is closer to $15 million. Now, we all know that contracts are all about resetting the market, and it's not necessarily you should get paid based on where you stand in the league, but I still think he is not someone that lines up with a $17 million contract. Now, Spotrac does contract projections, and here's what they got Dre'Mont Jones getting. A 4-year, $68.5 million contract, an average of $17.1 million a season. That's $2.5 million-ish less than the franchise tag at $19.72. If I had to be the GM for a day and make an offer, I think this would be my offer. 4 years, $60 million. That's an average of $15 million a season. Guarantee over half of it. You might get more in the open market. That's usually how free agency works if it's a little thin at one position group. I just think for Dre'Mont Jones, we can't overreact and just make it a top priority to bring him back for any cost whatsoever. I draw the line at 15, maybe budge to 16 million a season. So let me know, would you do this offer? A for accept or D for decline. Is this something you think it's fair to offer Dre'Mont Jones? All right, third and final element for this conversation is, can you afford to lose him? Is he so valuable that no matter what, you have to bring him back under all circumstances, right? That is the question that George Paton has to ask of, yeah, we might have to end up overpaying him because we can't afford to lose him, because without him, we're frankly screwed. When you look at the Broncos' other top pass rushers from 2022, who's going to step up and fill this pass rushing role? I want it to be Randy Gregory, but he also only played 6 games. How reliable and how accountable can he be to play a full season? I like Baron Browning a lot. I have no problem with him being into a bigger role if they lost Dre'Mont Jones. Nick Bonito, more or less, was a redshirt freshman last year. Jonathan Cooper is great off the bench. Not sure if he is someone that is in for a higher snap load if Dre'Mont Jones were to walk and you start doing a defensive end / pass rusher by committee approach. When you look at it from this standpoint, the Broncos can't afford to lose Jones, right? They cannot afford to be solely reliant and completely dependent on those 4 other players to bring the pass rush, because we know that Randy Gregory is probably going to miss some time. And so for that, we can't be completely sold on Randy Gregory being the only reliable defensive end pass rusher on this roster. I also thought this quote from Mike Klis at 9 News was really interesting and pretty telling. He said the Broncos do want Jones back. He's a good player, and when a team is coming off a 5-12 season, it needs more good players, not less. This is true. Most likely, the Broncos and Jones will engage in a down-to-the-deadline negotiation. Whether that deadline is March 7th for the tag or March 13th through 15th for free agency. To kind of wrap up this conversation about whether or not the Broncos should put the franchise tag on Dre'Mont Jones, here's my stance. Denver should be aggressive in wanting to bring him back. They need him. We went over that in the third prong. He has shown that he has progressed, and he's on a good trajectory. I still don't think you should franchise tag him. If you want to franchise tag him as a placeholder to figure out a long-term deal, that's a separate conversation. But also you run into the risk of, what if you can't what if you can't figure out a long-term deal? And now he's stuck at $19 million, which is an overpay for 22 career sacks in 4 seasons. That's almost a sack. It's almost $1 million a sack. So when it comes to Dre'Mont Jones, I'd like for Denver to find a way to bring him back. It's in their best interest. As Mike Klis pointed out, this is not a team that can afford to be losing good players, but not at $19 million. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe. That way we can get more subscribers and you guys can get more content all off season long.